Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and we're back with another new reset of the Memory of Chaos, new monsters, new bosses as well, but we will be talking about it all through from 6 to 10. If any of you are interested in a 1 to 5 guide, I probably will do a free-to-play run later on the channel, so you guys can check it out if you are really struggling, so not to worry, just sit tight. For those of you who maybe can't push beyond here as well, just listen. I think there will be some feedback as well as certain characters that are quite useful so that you can think in advance about what you need to build. Otherwise, I've done tons of build guides on the channel already and opinion guides too. You can check it out if you are interested in getting to this stage. But for most of us, maybe day 1 players or early players playing in like the first few patches, if you are tackling here, I'm going to talk real quick in my thought process out all of this. Let's just like summarize it. I think that this Memory of Chaos is easier than the last, only if you have specific unit built. I'll go more in depth in terms of that caveat in a little bit. But the main thing that I think that I'm worried about, that I see that the game is being played, is the monsters that are added here is purposely meant to benefit Blade and Huynh characters. You can see the Ape is very specifically targeted to have like fire weaknesses, wind weaknesses. Even the doggos here that are summoned are really meant to buff up like erudition classes. So I do see as Hoyover's trying to rectify the game state a little bit, pushing maybe less desired characters into the meta and maybe like reducing reliance on very strong characters in the game. Nonetheless, overall, in terms of like the whole meta table that we have seen, I don't think it shifts too much. I will talk about like 1.2 meta in a little bit as well. But first things first, let's start off with Memory of Chaos 6. Those of you who are regular viewers, you know how it works here. We go like one by one. You can click on the timestamps. I'll probably put it in the timestamps below and to check out what you're interested in. But first things first, Memory of Chaos 6. Let's talk about what units you want to actually play. The main difficulty, I think, other than this new boss, which we'll talk about it in a bit, is the same Sanctus Medicus. For those of us who haven't fought him before, maybe he's a bit tough to kill. What you want to do is you have 3 ways of defeating him. One is you have buff removers, for example like Lota and Pella. But I know not everyone has these units. Maybe you're not so lucky on your account, or you just don't want to build Pella for some reason. That is the first way you can address it. Second way you can address it is to take out the 2 summon links that he summons across the time. You can do that by having like AoE characters. It's quite simple. They don't have like tons of HP as well at this level. As long as you have them decently built damage dealers, you probably will take it out. So that is for the second way. And the third way, of course, is to just freeze him. He's very susceptible to freeze. He also has ice weakness. So characters like maybe Yenting, you have Japat, both of them address him quite well. For the doggos, one of them summons, one of them push actions when they die. So they're quite annoying if you ask me. And I think that they are not really a problem at this stage of the game state. But I do see these kind of units that summon might be a problem for a lot of single target characters in future as well moving forward. But when we get there, I'll talk about it. It's just something that I see as a trend. It might be a bit worrying, especially if they have like tons of HP moving forward. So the main problem, I think, the first half is really the monkey. If you want to address the monkey, what you want to do is actually the person who uses their skill is going to get targeted by this monkey who does quite a lot of damage. I think it's like 2k plus at my characters at this level. He does like 2k plus. So if you are getting one-shotted by this monkey, you probably need to build a little bit of HP and defense into your characters that like to use their skill quite often. That is one of the factors that I would be thinking of as well. So that is for the first half. It's not really a difficult half. Characters that perform well definitely will be Blade. I think this is like a Blade half or a Yenting half if you have them. Characters like Ice and Wind probably you will do very well. But yeah, those two are I think the first characters that come to mind. Like these two are quite ideal. I think I played them here as well. For the second set is a bit trickier because Yenting does summon those swords around. So single target units might feel a bit harder to fight him. So this is where, for example, if you are a Jingyuan puller, maybe you put him here, you'll be very happy. But you could also play Blade in this half. So Blade is like flexible in either if you pull him on the banner as well. So that is one thing to consider. As you can see here, is like Lightning as well as Wind. If you don't want to play these two characters, I think other characters that might be interesting to use could be, for example, you can play Danheng if you have him. Maybe you don't want to use him, then of course going with typing will be pretty good. Or any character has a little bit of AoE, you probably will get by. Like for example, if you have Weld here, you could even play, for example, like Sampo in the first half. as well, but I don't think it's going to be very effective as Sambo DPS for those of you who are maybe waiting for Kafka. And for those of you who pull Kafka, of course you can put her in like the second half here as well. If you are a Zealer player, I'm trying to like cover as much grounds as I can, because I know usually like 6 is where we tend to be the most lost if we are struggling here. 7, 8, 9 probably is like DPS check and like a bit of typing, so I spend a bit more time explaining Memory of Chaos. 6 for those of you who are really struggling. If I were to choose where to put Zealer, I'll probably put her in the second set. She does like to use her skill very often. I don't really want her being targeted by the monkey. I'd much rather like characters, for example, like Blade being targeted by the monkey and stuff like that. But I think she works okay in both halves, not really fantastic too. So other than that, this guy is like the same. I don't think you're really struggling with this unit that much as well. So that is for Memory of Chaos 6. What teams did I use? I used, if it matters or anything, I don't think it really, you will struggle a lot here. I used Blade as like my main DPS together with Yenqing in the first set. I played Zealer and as the solo DPS in the second set for my damage dealers. So it's possible still, although you do lose a bit of damage. I'll much rather like play Jingyuan, but I didn't. So yeah, that's for Memory of Chaos 6. For 7 is quite easy. I don't think it's too difficult. As you can see here, none of the monsters are new. If you are struggling with this phase, likely it's going to be either a DPS issue or maybe your units are not built well enough. But apart from that, it should be quite straightforward. This probably might be like the easiest floor out of all 6 through 10. For this one, I'll recommend you play a physical character like Susang. She's quite cheap to build, quite easy to build as well. You can build her break effect if you wanted to. We have build guides on the channel, you can check it out too. For any character that you see here, I have like everyone at 71 except Clara. I don't have Clara, but other than that, you can find build guides on the channel if you want more details. For here, Ice and Lightning, if you are Jingyuan main, you'll be happy to put him here. If you are Zealer main, you'll be happy to put her here. If you skipped everyone and only just recently pulled Blade, I think Blade will work somewhere better in... this is kind of meh for Blade, but this floor is like not super hard. So although it's like not very good for Blade, but most of the time we've already built a lot of characters coming to 1.2 to tackle this floor. I don't think Blade goes very well in either half. He seems to be like so in both of them. If you were to ask me, I'll probably put him in the first half just because this guy summons 2 slightly smaller monsters and his damage split is like 100% on the main target, 40% on the side, which works very nicely to these bosses that summon small underlings. So I probably will put like him here. So this will be like the DPS setup if you build any of these characters. If you play Yenqing, I probably will put Yenqing in the second set, even though this one is like ice weakness, especially if like they are your main damage dealers. Who else am I missing? I guess other people will probably play Welt as the main DPS. Or Clara is of course in the second set if you have her. Welt, I probably would play... I guess Welt is flexible since Bronya is weak to Imaginary. You have a couple of units weak to Imaginary. Slowing this guy down is also pretty decent. So Welt, if you have him as a DPS, you can play him really in both. Shouldn't be much of a difficulty for 7. For 8, let's talk about 8. I think 8 is okay. If you probably got past like 6, this is more or less the same thing. For those of you who skipped to 8 and you're maybe struggling with 8, I think the main issue you might be facing with this setup is either a DPS issue, maybe you can't burst down them fast enough, or you keep getting targeted by the monkey and keep getting one-shotted like one of your DPS characters and stuff like that. So how to handle the monkey is you don't want to use your skill on your squishy characters because they'll get focused down as well. So characters that don't really care too much about using skill likely will be beneficial, or maybe you have units that use skill that move directly after your fastest DPS. So for example, maybe you have Zealer, you have for example Bronya, and you build her for like a tank or something. If Zealer moves first, Bronya moves next, and then for example like you normal attack with Zealer after boosting her up, then of course the one that's going to get targeted is Bronya because she's the last person that uses a skill, stuff like that. It's quite a simple mechanic after you get used to this new boss. I don't think it's a major issue. He does like 2k plus at this area, at this stage on my units at about 71 level. So as long as you have a slightly higher HP than that and you're able to heal them up, I think you shouldn't feel much of a difficulty. The real big problem comes when like you get one-shotted and the other unit of the enemy monsters like follow-ups and defeats a target. I think that's the main cause for concern. I do like Lorta here if you put him in the last patch, because every time you go like below 50%, you instantly heal them up. Otherwise, you definitely want to run, for example, Natasha here. The emergency panic button heal does come a little bit in handy, and of course, having another unit, for example, in this set to use a skill and draw the aggro might be quite useful if you're struggling too. Let's talk about main DPSs and who I would recommend on each side. If you are a Zealer main, definitely in the second set. If you put maybe Su Sang here, I'll put it in the second set as well. Let's see where I'll put Jingyuan. I think Jingyuan might work better in... do I want him in the first set? I don't really want him in the first set here, but there are quite a lot of doggos initially. I think Jingyuan is about the same, more or less even in my opinion. These two don't summon any monsters, so I'm not really too worried about it. Probably I would recommend like Blade here, Jingyuan here in this setup if you have any of these 4 characters built. Of course, if you have Welt, if you are playing Welt as another DPS, I'm focusing like mainly purely on the DPS because probably that will matter quite a bit. I'll put him here. Other than that, I think if you have like a Fire MC, will be pretty good here also. Because I didn't talk about it in Memory of Chaos 6, but Fire MC does address the monkey quite well. Not only because of the fire weakness, but the taunt actually overrides that focusing ability the monkey has. And I will play Fire MC in like the first set if any of you are wondering. Other than that, Ice. I think I'll play Ice probably in the first set as well. Zealer really works quite well for the second set. And any of you, maybe you have, for example, where is my Qingque? Qingque can be played in the second set. I think the quantum weakness is quite attractive. Clara also in the second set. So that's for Memory of Chaos 8. For Memory of Chaos 9, this one is probably going to get tricky. Some of us maybe didn't remember what Svarog was like in 1.0. So this is when we get reminded of this boss as well. For the first half, I don't think any of us might be struggling with this. It's more or less like the same monsters that we have been encountering all the way. The real problem here, maybe Void Ranger Trampler is doing a lot of damage. They do focus fire and have a bit of AoE. So some team-wide shielding will be good to tackle Void Ranger Trampler. In this case, like Panic Button heals like Natasha, Bailu will work very well here, especially if you take some damage from the Void Ranger Trampler and then you just want to heal up your whole party. These two generally work well. You have Japad that works quite well too. I think these 3 units are decent for this stage. Fire MC maybe not as much. I will likely play Fire MC in the second set. I'll explain why in a little bit for defensive positions. Lorta can be played in either. I do like him in the first set a little bit more, especially since these monsters, in order to get by them, you want to remove their buffs as well. If you can't remove their buffs, you can freeze them. If you don't want to freeze them, just defeat the monsters on the side. The healing aura goes away and will be pretty straightforward. The one that's hard to take down is this Svarog here with the arms. It's really more of the arms than Svarog himself. How to burst it down? The unit that bursts it down like the best, in my opinion, is like Danheng. Danheng like one-shots the arm out of weakness. So just save up your ultimate, you can burst it down. But if you don't care about the arms, or you don't have enough DPS to burst it down, Blade is a decent alternative. Of course, Zealer is a decent alternative as well. The arms, from what I remember, are also weak to quantum. But if I'm not wrong, Zealer doesn't one-shot the arms, so that is something to note. Or does she with her ultimate? I can't really remember as of now. But with her skill, she only takes it like somewhere down to like 40% or maybe 60% around there. That's one thing to note. So you might want to do a full combo on the arms. Other than that, why I like Fire MC here is not only you have fire burn for this unit, you have team-wide damage reduction, you also draw aggro, so the arms will likely focus on Fire MC. Where I tend to like go wrong in this stage is, for example, I don't have the taunt up, and when I don't have the taunt up or the shield up, this guy gets to take an additional action. Or was that Memory of 10? I can't remember. But anyway, if you don't have the taunt up, the arm can take any of your DPSs, and for some reason they keep liking to take my DPS, which was kind of annoying. And if you don't want to, for example, play maybe these characters here, I think Jingyuan also works better in the second set, especially a lot of AoE monsters that are around, quite good too. The first set he's decent as well, but as you can see, there's like lightning rest here. You can actually see like the resistance just by scrolling here. A lot of them had lightning rest, so even though there's a lot of monsters here, he might not be very good in the first set compared to like the second set, which is recommended lightning 2. If you're pulling Kafka, Kafka is definitely in the better half in the second set, also because she's relatively tanky, will not die if she gets grabbed by the arm with her defensive traces that she has too in her overall kit. Other than that, pretty simple. I think you would likely be okay once you follow these tips and tricks. The trick really for the Svarog arm is make sure you have a big burst ready to instantly like either defeat the arm when it spawns or immediately break it, for example. Or if you crowd control Svarog, the arm also doesn't move. So by crowd control, I mean like freeze and stuff like that. So if you have those, it's pretty good. Or if you can't CC him, you can probably just, for example, just weakness break him very, very quickly. So characters like Asta or anyone with the weakness breaking that you see here does pretty well too. Silver Wolf, of course, to give more versatility. And the last one, Memory of Chaos 10. I don't think this is the easy stage by any means. Memory of 10 to get the max is always quite difficult. Let me first share with you like what I use, as well as like going into more details on the combinations that you can do. So the characters that I use personally were, I'm trying to remember. So I think it's Blade here, Luota here, and who are my other characters? I think Yenting here. I always play this team, and for this set I played her, and I believe this in this formation. And my last character was March 7. I didn't play Japat just because I like the cleanse a little bit more for this second half. I fully auto-battled this half, but I'll talk a bit about the tactics that is needed in order to get by as well. So for the first half, I don't think there's much difficulty. We most likely have faced a lot of these monsters before. It's pretty straightforward. If you have Jingyuan, you could play him in this set as well. Otherwise, I think Zealer works better in the first half. Second half is definitely nicer for win DPS, or for example, if you have, you could play Welt, you could play Lota is okay too. You could play, of course, if you had, where is she? Susang in the second set, because Kafka is weak to physical. Getting her a bit more broken is also pretty beneficial. You have Disciples of Sanctus Medicus here, so you really do want to bring a character like either like Lota, or you want to bring a character, for example, like Pella, to just remove the buffs as quickly as you can. Of course, Lota is the best in slot here in my opinion, because he cleanses, which addresses Kafka. He also removes buffs like them, he heals, so he's a sustain character, and he's also imaginary, so he's like a perfect fit for this floor. Blade is also a very good counter to Kafka, because every time she procs like DOT on Blade, he gets like one stack to build up for his counters much quicker. So Blade and Lota are like perfect combos. In fact, I think you can just like more or less solo with these two if you have them at a very high investment. Personally, my characters are like not super well built. I'll show you like towards the end also the stats I use for a pure auto battle team in a little bit as well. So if you're interested, just stick around to the end. But as for this one, I think you will want 2 DPSs, especially if you or maybe have bit more time. If you are struggling with this floor, my advice will be going twice. One is to bring in like a sustain team to just get like, for example, have no down characters and maybe like not even clear these two, and then go in again and try to like defeat the unit as fast as you can. Even if you have one unit dead in the floor, you actually will get all 3 as long as you manage to get the other 2 objectives. So a lot of people, the common misconception is you have to go in and clear all 3 at once in order to get the full objectives. That is not true. You can actually go in twice, get this one first, and bring a defensive team. Think of it like simulated universe. You can play this one as long as you clear in 40, and then of course go in again and like try hard and then get the remaining 10 and 20 in that sense as well. So that's like a quick tip for any of you struggling. So I use Yenting here, but really any other like single target DPS would work quite well. You can play Susang here if you don't have Yenting. You can play, I think Clara is also decent here, not too bad as well. You could of course play, who else can you play here? Danheng is also decent. But if you have Jingyuan and Zealer, I prefer them in like the first set, mostly because of the you want to speed run the first set as quickly as you can, and you can speed run this quite fast because of hyper carry comms. It's more or less like standardized, nothing too significant. It's quite easy if for the lack of the better word. Other than that, cleansers in the second half is definitely better. So Lota, Natasha are definitely strong because you want to remove that domination buff that Kafka gives. It's quite irritating, as well as March 7. I really do like March 7 a lot more in like this current like meta going in. Of course, she has a bit of freeze, she has a bit of everything, and it's quite reliable, especially if you're like auto battling. I find a very strong unit. So that is my thoughts for Memory of Chaos 6 to 10. I think what you guys are curious now is like, what build am I using? So let me just show you real quick. I'm of course 68. For those of you who want a bit of context, I have, let's talk about like the first team first. So my Zealer here is like 92, 91. I talk about like build guides on the channel already, so you guys can check it out if you're interested more in detail. I'm using in the night here, and I'm using, for example, like these stats, pretty much standardized build for my Zealer. My Bronya, I'm actually playing her with quite high speed. She's my fastest character in the game, 144. My Zealer on the other hand is like slightly slower, she's like 140. I want her to go first so she can push the team. I'm using Broken Kill as well as the Messenger traversing hackerspace, not even fully leveled up, but it's good enough for me. I like Broken Kill because of the effect rest that Bronya naturally gets in her overall kit. You see some effect rest here, you see some effect rest here, so she does get like 10%, plus the 10% you just need to find like 10% more. Not even super well leveled up also, but does the job. Other than that, real quick, I'm not going to go so much in depth. It's more or less the same character builds. I'm running Landau's Choice, more of like a bruiser, a fire MC here to do some damage. Quite slow, so I don't have to use the skill too much to keep the damage reduction uptime. Natasha's build pretty straightforward as well. I guess what's more interesting will be the new characters that are in the game. Let's talk about where's March 7 first. Since she's probably the most boring out of the new characters that are in the game. I'm using Trend of Universal Market. This is in preparation for a DOT team. I'm just building her, testing her out to make her work. If you guys want more of like how to build a DOT team, I have a guide on the channel. You can check it out too. And I'm building March 7 for a specific purpose, which I mentioned in that video as well. For those of you who are interested, do check it out. It's quite interesting, I think. And this is my build so far for her. Not really super significant. And who else did I use in this team? I think I used Yanqing. So Yanqing, another old character. Too much crit rate here. I'm using the free-to-play cruising in the Stellar Sea with these ratios for his damage. Other than that, Luota, I'm having him at 22, 73, Bailu's Light Cone. I'm running Sprightly Von Wack and just some random gear. Not really like min-maxing this character yet. Will want to min-max in a little bit. Of course, I want to change this set too. And last but not least, I have Blade. I have Signature 50, 162. I am running the new sets, Longevous Disciple. I can't find a good enough piece here, so I am going to farm more for now. So I have room to improve because right now I'm heavily at like 50, so I can definitely go higher. And yeah, those are my builds, my tips for Memory 6 to 10. If you guys find this interesting, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do this every single new rotation. And let me know how else I can improve in the format. And if you appreciate such content, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.